Hello, and welcome to 3-Act Film Review, where I give my thoughts on movies, analyze them based on the 3-act movie structure, and give them a score based on craft, story, and how much I enjoyed the movie. Today we are looking at Sonic the Hedgehog 3. If you haven't seen the movie yet, I'll give you a spoiler-free review first, and if you have, stick around to the end for my full thoughts and analysis of this film. Sonic 3 was a movie that kept on delivering as it went on. The movie was funny, it was heartwarming, it was a fun, thrilling ride that left me wanting to see it again and feel super excited for the next one to come out. The casting of Keanu Reeves as Shadow was absolutely perfect, and the decision to have Jim Carrey play both Robotniks was genius. And the rest of the cast continued to deliver as they had in the other two Sonic movies. Sonic continues to be the overconfident speedster we all know, Tails is still the adorable brain of the team, and Knuckles remains the stoic, wise, and hilariously naive warrior. In fact, I never thought I'd ever say this, just because of how Knuckles was portrayed in the games and different TV series as the big strong jock. I think Knuckles might be becoming one of my favorite characters. The way the movie crafts him to still be the strong, tough guy he is in the games, but also makes him wise and often the voice of reason for the team is very refreshing for his character and makes him feel very well-rounded. Plus, his curiosity for the human world makes him probably one of the most funny and adorable members of Team Sonic, and Idris Elba makes all of those elements very cohesive as he voices him. All of the voice actors continue to make each character come to life. Visually, this movie was beautiful. The way the filmmakers were able to combine how much CGI is in the movie with the live action is seamless. It's not too cartoony and it's not too realistic and makes it feel like you are actually in the world of Sonic. It's also bright enough that you can actually see what is happening, unlike a lot of action movies that are made today. The way the characters have been designed to the very last detail is amazing. The way you can see the individual spines on Sonic and Shadow create a very three-dimensional look to the characters and help them not seem too flat. The same with Tails and Knuckles being seen through the individual strands of fur. Dr. Eggman's costumes themselves tell a story showing how out of the game he is, and then how much he wants to be like his grandfather, to it also being different enough to show that he isn't just like his grandfather. The only parts of the movie I would consider as downsides were there were a couple of jokes that weren't that funny, but there were only a few. And then there were some plot points that didn't quite make a whole lot of sense, which I can't give here without spoiling anything, and a few plot points that didn't quite hit the way they were meant to, that with just maybe an extra line of dialogue or two would have completed it. Here's my score for the movie, and if you have seen it and want to know why I scored it the way I did, stick around to the end. Now on to my full review and analysis of the film. So here is your final spoiler warning. This movie lived up to my expectations right from the beginning. Right off the bat, we see Shadow being released from his stasis by what appears to be Dr. Robotnik based on the icon that shows up on the computer console, and that is later revealed to be Dr. Robotnik's grandfather, Gerald Robotnik. More on him later. From this beginning scene, though, Shadow really had command of the screen. After the opening scene, we get to see Sonic having a camp-out with his found family. I really liked this, and it felt like a continuation of where we had left off from Sonic 2. The next scene we get is Tom and Sonic exploring Sonic's old cave, and Tom finding a drawing Sonic made of him and Longclaw. Tom reminds Sonic of how he didn't let Longclaw's death make him angry and bitter. This will be important for later on in the movie. This is where I will talk about how this movie fits into the 3-act plot structure. To do this, I will be tracking Sonic's want and his need throughout the movie. At this point in the movie, we've just about wrapped up Act 1. Act 1, we've met most of our characters, we've established our main character's want. Sonic's want is to be a hero. And we later see that part of his wanting to be a hero is that he wasn't able to be one for Longclaw. So when Gunn comes to ask for Team Sonic's help to stop a threat, he wants to be there. After Team Sonic arrives in Japan, we get their first interaction with Shadow, which I thought played out great, with both of them questioning why they look like each other, and to Shadow's credit, he is older than Sonic, so Sonic is the one that looks like Shadow. Shadow quickly beats up Team Sonic and takes off on his motorcycle, the Dark Rider. Here is one part of confusion for me. Shadow has just escaped from being in stasis for 50 years. He goes to the middle of Tokyo, starts making a mess of things. Team Sonic comes to stop him. They get their butts kicked, and Shadow rides away on a motorcycle and also suddenly has a gun. I can understand the gun. He probably picked it up off of one of the gun agents that was also trying to stop him before. But where did he get the motorcycle? Did he pick it up on his way out of prison? Or was it something that I just happened to completely miss when I watched it? That part I was a little lost on. Regardless of that, Shadow on his bike was super cool. And we got the classic Akira bike slide. Shadow and Sonic race, Sonic loses. Act 2 begins when our character's solution to their problem fails. Sonic wants to be a hero, his solution, take up Gun's offer, and take Shadow back into custody. Then Sonic fails at defeating Shadow. This is also an important moment because Tails and Knuckles express that they are upset with Sonic when he went off without them, which will be important for Sonic's need at the end of the movie. After that, Team Sonic meets at the Chow Garden to talk to Commander Walters. There was some dialogue in this scene that I thought was hilarious, especially when one of the little girls asked Tails if he was Detective Pikachu, and then Knuckles agreed and thought it was hilarious. I thought that bit of dialogue was great. Then we get a lot of exposition with Commander Walters explaining what Project Shadow was, where Shadow came from, and how Shadow ended up in stasis. When it comes to exposition, you want it to come at the last possible moment so that the story would make no sense unless we had that information. At this moment in the movie, I felt like this was an appropriate time for some exposition. Our main characters are demanding to know who they are up against, and it sets us up as the audience for what comes next. Exposition should also only be delivered by comedy, through a messenger, or through conflict. The movie gives us this through a messenger, Commander Walters, and so I would say the movie was successful in how the exposition was given. Commander Walters then gives Sonic one half of a key in order to keep it away from Shadow. The key goes to a weapon, which Commander Walters isn't able to elaborate on as the restaurant is attacked by egg drones. Walters is injured and dies? I think. I wasn't actually super sure on that on my first watch through. A masked motorcyclist, who turns out to be Agent Stone, arrives and saves everyone from the egg drones, which comes as a surprise at first because he's on Dr. Eggman's side, and usually egg drones come from Eggman. After Agent Stone explains the drones were not from Eggman, Team Sonic leaves with Agent Stone. After that, the gun agents who initially recruited Team Sonic arrive, including Director Rockwell, who is upset that the key is gone and decides that she can't trust Team Sonic anymore, which that didn't make much sense to me. I guess maybe she thought Team Sonic was working with Shadow now or something. It just didn't make a whole lot of sense why she would suddenly turn on them if she initially recruited them. Her motivations seemed a little mixed up, but boy, was she obsessed with those keys. Agent Stone takes Team Sonic to see Eggman so he can get his name cleared for the previous attack. Again, Jim Carrey's performance is just spectacular. From the first moment we see him as Dr. Eggman, he's unhinged, he's chaotic, he's everything you'd want from a character played by Jim Carrey. I also loved the costume design at the end of this scene when he gets his suit tailored and put on. The little details from parts of it being made from a quilt we had just seen a few shots earlier to seeing exactly where Agent Stone sewed in his own shirt was just beautiful. And I think it also just shows how unhinged and chaotic Eggman is at the current moment. After figuring out where the egg drones were being controlled from, they all leave and we cut to Shadow at the abandoned gun bunker, which we soon learn through Shadow's flashbacks as he walks through that this was where Project Shadow was taking place. This is where he met Maria and how they became best friends, and also a little what happened the night everything with Project Shadow went wrong, and how Maria died while they were trying to escape. I really enjoyed this scene. I enjoyed getting to see into Shadow's past and how he was feeling at that time in the movie. It wasn't necessarily a turning point for Shadow, that comes later, but we start to see some of Shadow's motivations for being upset with Gun. While this isn't solely Shadow's story, I do want to track his want and need through the movie as it mirrors Sonic's in many ways. This is the point where we understand what Shadow's want is, to get revenge for Maria's death. So when Dr. Gerald Robotnik arrives and asks Shadow to help him, he is more than willing to help. Plus it helped that Shadow already knew him. From here on out, I'm going to refer to Gerald as Dr. Robotnik and Ivo as Dr. Eggman. We then see Team Sonic, Dr. Eggman, and Agent Stone arrive at the bunker. They split up to look for who stole the egg drones. We find out that Knuckles is afraid of ghosts, which makes Knuckles even more adorable in my opinion. Dr. Eggman meets Dr. Robotnik. They reunite as grandfather and grandson. Eggman joins Robotnik and Shadow. There's another little battle, and the villains all escape with Team Sonic tied up and about to get sucked into a black hole. The whole battle and everyone meeting Robotnik and Eggman joining him is important because it plays into Sonic's trust issues. He took a risk trusting Eggman when they went to the bunker, and then he finds out that he was right in not trusting him all along. I think it made Sonic have even more trust issues because I think for the moment he might have started to trust Eggman even just a little. This is the midpoint of the film where we learn what Sonic's need is, to trust others. I guess not so much we learn what it is because we've been watching Sonic the whole time run off on his own and ignore a lot of help from his teammates, and he's also been told by his teammates to not run off and to trust them. But this is a moment where Sonic has a small realization that he does have trust issues, and Eggman brought that on by betraying whatever trust Sonic had put in him. Team Sonic escapes, and they make it home to Tom and Maddie, who have gone a little craft crazy, which didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails have been gone for, a day? Maybe 2? So I don't know how they managed to get that bored and learn that many crafts, but I'm kind of impressed that they did. Then we see both teams making their plans to break into Gun headquarters and get the other half of the key to the Eclipse Cannon, which is the weapon that Commander Walters was unable to elaborate on when he gave the first half of the key to Sonic. This is a moment where we finally see Team Sonic all working together. They make a plan, they start to execute it. Tom and Maddie are there helping them get in, but once again, Sonic runs off on his own and almost doesn't make it into Gun headquarters until Tails comes in and helps him get in at the last second. Interspersed in here, we have an interaction between Shadow and Agent Stone, where Agent Stone tells Shadow to not be so serious as they are about to rule the world, and Shadow remarks there won't be anything left to rule, which clues Agent Stone in on what is about to happen. They all make it to the vault where the key is, and then there's a fight between Team Robotnik, Team Shadow, Gun, and the forces of gravity. Director Rockwell is able to make it out with a key, and Tom uses Tails' hologram disguise technology to appear as Commander Walters to get the key from her, which she does give him the key because she does think that it is Commander Walters. Or she's just really in shock seeing him alive. When I first saw the movie, I didn't know if he had died or not, and so I thought she was surprised to see Commander Walters up and walking around, like maybe he had just been super injured. If he was dead, you'd think she'd be able to call the bluff that it wasn't him, or maybe she didn't know if he was dead or not. Overall, Director Rockwell was kind of a weak character, and almost every scene she was in, I was confused as to what her motivations were, what she was trying to do, what she was trying to accomplish. I think the movie could have done without her because she shows up in like 3 scenes, and those 3 scenes could have just been some generic gun agents or something. She doesn't try to chase down Team Sonic to get the keys back. She just assumes they'll all go to Gun headquarters to get the other key, so she just waits. I guess that was her plan. She felt like a character that was supposed to put pressure and tension on Team Sonic and where they were going and how they were doing things, but she didn't really do any of that. She just kept kind of appearing. She was just there for the sake of the plot. I do think that having Tom be disguised as Commander Walters was a good move story-wise. Shadow arrives and sees Tom disguised, thinks it's actually Commander Walters, and attacks him because of how angry he is with Commander Walters, which sends Sonic into a rage, wanting revenge on Shadow, reflecting Shadow's want. Shadow is able to get the key off of Tom, and Eggman, Robotnik, and Shadow all get away in the Eclipse Cannon to destroy the Earth. Then we get an interaction between Sonic and Knuckles that I really liked. As I've stated throughout this review, Tails and Knuckles have been doing their best to remind Sonic that they are a team and should stick together and that Sonic needs to trust them. Now Sonic is so focused on being the hero, and now even more so to get revenge on Shadow for attacking Tom, and I think partly he's angry at himself for not being able to be a hero for Tom, that he will do anything to stop Shadow and the Robotniks, even use the Master Emerald, which they had decided at the end of Sonic 2 they would never use again, and Knuckles hid it away. Knuckles, after trying to give Sonic some very wise words, finally gives in to Sonic's pleas for the location of the Master Emerald. I think this is a big realization moment for Tails and Knuckles in that they can't make Sonic trust them or stick with them as a team. They need to let him figure that out on his own. Now, this next part is probably my least favorite part of the movie. Knuckles tells Sonic where the Master Emerald is, and then we cut to Wade back in Green Hills using the Master Emerald to practice hockey. And then Sonic has to challenge him for it, but it is super easy because Sonic's super fast and it's against Wade. If there was ever a moment to make a joke or do something to lighten the mood, this was not it. First of all, we're building up to the climax of the movie. Sonic is angry, he wants to go after Shadow as fast as possible, we're feeling his tension, and having that scene totally killed the mood and the build-up. Second, it felt like a total cop-out to have Wade have the Master Emerald and make it the easiest thing ever to get, especially after Knuckles' whole speech about how Sonic will have to get past a mighty and challenging warrior to get it. And I get that Knuckles might feel that way about Wade because of the events in the Knuckles TV series, and I can see where the writers were trying to set that up and execute a funny moment. It just was not executed well, and that was not the place to do it. So Sonic gets the Master Emerald, he turns into Super Sonic, and he flies into space. Back on the Eclipse Cannon, Shadow has powered it up, and Dr. Eggman figures out, after ignoring some warnings from Agent Stone, that Dr. Robotnik wasn't using the Eclipse Cannon to take over the world, but to destroy it, which is not what Eggman wants. He wants to rule over it. So Eggman starts working from the inside to stop his grandfather. Shadow has left to go fight Sonic, and during the battle, he is able to absorb some of the energy from the Chaos Emeralds. He then becomes Super Shadow. During this epic battle between Super Sonic and Super Shadow, we get some of the best lines of the movie in terms of Sonic's arc. Shadow questions Sonic as to why he is all alone. He then assumes that all his friends tried to stop him and that Sonic wouldn't listen to them. And then the best line, in my opinion, which brings Sonic's arc almost to completion: what kind of hero abandons his friends to pursue revenge? This part of the movie is what is called the nadir, the low point of the film. Sonic has left his friends behind, Tom is in the hospital, the Eclipse Cannon is being powered up to destroy Earth, and Sonic has met his match in Shadow and is letting his anger consume him. Until he remembers what Tom told him at the beginning of the movie, that he didn't let the pain of losing Longclaw change who he was. This is Sonic's realization of self, that the anger and the revenge is not who he is. Sonic then has a heart-to-heart with Shadow, telling him about Longclaw, and helping Shadow realize they aren't that different, and that he doesn't have to let his anger change him or drive him to revenge either. This is where we move into Act 3. Sonic now has to make a choice to embrace what his need has been, which has been to trust others. Sonic extends a hand of friendship and trust to Shadow, and Shadow acts on his need of not letting his anger consume him and agrees to team up. What would have made this even stronger is if he had contacted Tails and Knuckles and maybe they formed some sort of plan and reunited as a team. And maybe I missed the part where Sonic got rid of his comms, or maybe they don't work between Earth and space or something. But the fact that Sonic didn't contact Tails and Knuckles makes the next part not have a whole lot of sense, where Tails and Knuckles arrive and save Eggman and help get rid of Robotnik. How did they know they needed to be up there to help? And when to be up there? That all would have made more sense if Sonic had somehow contacted them and was like, hey, I need your guys' help. But I digress. Sonic and Shadow are able to stop a bunch of robots and then block the laser beam, while Tails, Knuckles, and Eggman work on redirecting the laser so it doesn't hit Earth. Sonic loses his strength blocking the laser and starts to fall to Earth. Tails goes to try and catch him and then also loses consciousness because of the Earth's pull. It's only when Knuckles, with his 100% muscle, comes to get both Tails and Sonic, and they are able to get to Earth safely. Eggman and Shadow sacrifice themselves, making sure the Eclipse Cannon can't do any other damage to Earth, with a very touching live stream from Dr. Eggman to Agent Stone. Sonic then is able to reconcile with Tails and Knuckles, and officially tells them that they are part of a team, and we get our happy ending. Overall, this movie was great. Here again is how I scored it. For enjoyment, I gave it a 9 out of 10. I think what brought it down from a 10 out of 10 was just a few of the jokes, especially the Wade playing hockey scene. It kind of ruined that perfect 10 for me. For story and 3-act structure, I gave them both an 8 out of 10. An 8 out of 10 for story was mostly because there were a few things that didn't quite make sense, how they were happening or why they were happening, and then I really would have liked to see at the beginning of Act 3 with Sonic's realization to have that include Tails and Knuckles somehow more. And then in terms of craft, I gave it a 9 out of 10. The movie visually was beautiful. The detail on the Sonic characters was great. Animation was great. The costumes, you could tell, had a lot of thought put into them. Everything about watching it, you could tell the filmmakers really had the audience in mind as they were creating this film. Overall, the movie got an 8.5 out of 10 from me. I hope you enjoyed this review. If there are any movies you'd like to hear my take on or hear me analyze the structure, let me know down in the comments.